do have a lot of experiences with that, unfortunately, but fortunately. I do have some slides up here. So if you want to take notes, please do so, because some of the information will be rather quick, because it's a short process, a short period of time. So I may not be able to dwell on it that long, so I do have a PowerPoint. I will promise to not dwell on something too long. But in order for you to get to know me a little better, you can read the leaflet, but that doesn't really tell you who I am. Like Pat said, I do have 2 children. My son Connor, who's 19, who attends college here, and my daughter Meredith, who is a junior in high school. Really, to kind of get to know me, I've been very blessed in my career. Like you, I started out in college at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, which is in Daytona Beach. I went down there to be a pilot, and here I am today in the nuclear industry. Something along the way changed my path. Had I been rigid and unwilling to change, I might have been spinning in circles today, not knowing where I'm going. You have to understand that sometimes change happens and it's out of your control. So one question I do want to ask you is do you have a personal growth plan? You might want to think about a personal growth plan of whatever situation, condition that you're in. Because if you're here, then you're interested in change. You're interested in ideas. You're interested in learning. And we all learn, regardless of how much we've been through, how old we are, how young we are. You are never too old to learn. My good friend John Maxwell, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of John Maxwell, but he's a national author. He also has his own certification program. But he says that the law of intentionality is personal growth just doesn't happen. It actually, you have to want to have it happen. You have to do something to make it happen. You have to take action. So what kind of action is that? Can you hear me? So what is success and what is failure? I'm not going to get into the definition of what they are, but what I can tell you is success is generally something that we feel satisfied over, something that we've worked very hard for and is accomplished. We can say that that's success. A lot of athletic teams use the form of success in more or less than someone's got to win and someone's got to lose. How about failure? How would you describe failure? Well, as Pat said, a lot of us don't like to talk about failure. But failure is going to come, and it's probably going to come more than once. You need to get away from the fear of failure so that you can overcome it when it does come. In a better analogy, let me put this for you. You're walking down the middle of the road. You're walking right down the line. To your right is success. To your left is failure. How are you going to avoid the failure if it's on your left? Because both sides are going to be pulling on an influence. Success is building a personal growth plan, being focused, getting a mentor, really taking action on how you're going to be successful. Because remember, success doesn't just happen. Failure is going to influence you down by listening to others that say you can't do this. Be focused on your plans, on your personal growth. Set a personal growth plan. I have all of these up here just for just a demonstration. These are what you would call defining moments in my life. I'm not going to talk about each one, but each one of these changed my life dramatically. In fact, some of these, if they had not occurred, my son that's sitting over there would not be here today. In fact, the junior hockey, is basically an injury that occurred to me when I was 17 years old. And real quick, I was on the ability to play for the U.S. Hockey Olympics. And I was on my way, I was in the tryout game, and I had one of the NHL teams looking at me. It was the Philadelphia Flyers. And unfortunately, to make a long story short, I found a hole in the ice right in front of the net, and it tore my knee to shreds. Not only did it end my hockey career, but the doctors told me that I would never walk again, much less run. Well, I proved them wrong because I had a personal growth plan at that age, although I didn't know about it. Wisdom has given me the knowledge to understand that I've learned from my past experiences, and I've created a personal growth plan. We'll talk more about some of these other areas that are up there, but each one of those, whether it was in my control or out of my control, changed my life drastically. And each one of these was a major event. Let me tell you about how that kind of changed. I lived with the same parents and the same address as my two sisters and my brother. We lived at 77 Landmark Road in Warwick, Rhode Island. I struggled in school. I really struggled in school. I had a resource teacher that would help me. I was terrible in math. I really had a hard time. I failed a lot of classes, and I had to retake those classes. My sister Heather, 77 Landmark Road, Warwick, Rhode Island, same address, same parents. Yet, she had straight A's in high school and went on to medical school. Same address, same parents. I struggled. My sister went to medical school. My other sister, Holly, 77 Landmark Road, Warwick, Rhode Island. Same address, same parents. She became a biology major, very successful. Again, I struggled through school. Failed classes, had to retake a grade. My brother Todd, extremely intelligent. Straight A's through school. Although he did not choose the path towards college, he chose a different path. Extremely bright. 77 Landmark Road, Warwick, Rhode Island. Same address, same parents. Yet I struggled. So what is the difference there? Why did that occur with the same environment? Same parents, same address? Because we're all different. We all react to different things. And I tell you this to try to get on your same level, because each and every one of us is unique. We're all different. We struggle with different things while other people have a strength with certain things. But again, I'm going to go back to the personal growth plan. It doesn't just happen. I stand here today very, very blessed to have a wonderful career. As Pat said, I have been in the aviation industry where I was part of the JFK operation. I ran JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark, all three major gateway airports in New York, at a very young age. I was one of the first individuals hired by Homeland Security as a special agent, and I stood the organization up in the Northeast, a very volatile area. After that, I've been part of the first nuclear build construction project in the United States in 35 years. A multi-billion dollar complex design, and I've been part of that. So what changed? What changed from my failure to what I have today? What you see in front of you are gaps that we tend to think are going to happen. Well, they just don't happen. These gaps are some of the areas that I talk about with initiating a personal growth plan. So where do you go in your life when things of this type of issues happen? What destination do you go? What's the farthest you can imagine going? And how long will it take? I'm going to tell you a secret. Most people imagine this all the time. I bet you sit in your room when you're alone, you sit on the beach, you sit in traffic, you walk into class, you're 5 minutes prior to teaching class, you think of things that you could do. So what limits you to getting up and doing that? There are invisible barriers that are limiting you. When I say use your imagination, do it. And seriously, do it now. What are you afraid of? Well, you see here, it's a baseball picture. How many people are familiar with baseball? Well, we gotta have more than that. The first thing about getting to second base is taking your foot off the base. Are you ever going to get to second base if you don't take your foot off the bag? You're not. And that's one of the biggest fears in life. This analogy is that individual is never going to get to second base if he doesn't take the chance by pulling his foot off first base and making it an opportunity to move on to the next level. One of the, who's familiar with the New England Patriots? The football team in the NFL. We have, in the sports world, you either win or you lose. That's generally the concept when it gets down to the higher levels. The New England Patriots, we could all probably say, in the last 15 years have been very successful. Have they not? They've won 4 or 5 Super Bowls. They constantly are ahead of every other competitor. So what's different with their organization compared to the other 31 organizations that seem to struggle and fight every year? Well, for one, they got a great head coach, and that head coach gets it. But the most important thing, and Bill Belichick is their head coach, he will tell you that he has a personal growth plan. He has prepared for the opposition, so he knows what to expect, and he makes his players aware of that. Many people want to change. However, they don't know how to change. And most people can change to a degree, to a certain level, and then they remain stuck because they don't know how to go any further. So what's the difference? How do some people succeed and others don't? What you see here is what I call the fear factor. Yes, I've been through all of these. I've changed a lot in my life. I've been in a number of different organizations. I've been let go from employers for no other reason other than they wanted to save money, not because of performance. So remember, it doesn't matter how good you are sometimes. Sometimes things are completely out of your control. So now you have to ask yourself, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to let those emotions dictate your life? Or are you going to change? Here's some tips that may help. Most importantly, if you don't know what your strengths are, you're going to struggle. And that's not easy. It really isn't. It took me a long time to figure out what my niche is, where I was strong, what areas that I really did develop well. But once I understood that, I created a personal growth plan. Did I shut this off? Can you still hear me? Yes. So how aware are you? Are you aware of your opportunities? Robert Schooler said, If you knew you could not fail, what would you do? Would you change? I think we all would. So what holds us back? Awareness. Awareness is not just being aware. Awareness is the understanding of what your personal strengths are. What are you good at? What do you do very well? Action. As I said earlier, personal growth doesn't just happen. It takes action. You have to get up and do something. You have to set your priorities. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. You've heard the term, Rome wasn't built in one day. It took years. Well, that's your life. Look at your life as Rome. Every day matters. So instead of managing your priorities every day, manage your life and lead yourself. Accountability. What is accountability? Accountability is finding a friend, somebody sitting next to you that wants the same thing that you've told your personal goals to, and that holds you accountable. Says, how have you done today? Hey, did you go out and do that public speaking event? I actually have accountability for today. I told friends in my certification group that I was coming here. I'm being held accountable by them to get up and do it. Yeah, I could have booked this and then I could have called Pat and said, a further engagement happened, I have to cancel. But I held myself accountable to come here today to provide you some valuable insight towards changing or recovering from failure, because it's going to happen. The attraction point is very important. There's so many opportunities today, you really have to find out from all of these others what you're good at and your attraction of what you want to do for the rest of your life. Once you find that, you're going to find that you're going to find success, because they're all related. As I said earlier, you're going to need that accountability. It's important that you find a mentor. So what's a mentor? A mentor is somebody that can help you through the process. Whether it's calculus, which I had in college because I was terrible. If I had done it myself, I would have gotten a D. But I had a mentor every day that I bothered to help me get through the calculus. And I needed calculus because it was part of my major as a pilot. Believe it or not, we were not allowed to use hand computers to navigate from the United States to Germany, which our flight plan was. I had to do it by hand. Well, as I told you earlier, I was terrible in that. So I needed a mentor. And I went out and found him. Always be prepared. Don't just show up and wing it. Don't say, it'll all work out. Be prepared. Preparation is the most important aspect in life. And as my son will tell you, I've coached baseball for years. We were never the biggest home run hitting team. We weren't going to win every game. But my mantra was that I want to be the most fundamentally sound team in the league. And you can ask him later if we were or we weren't. I think we were. There were a lot of times that we were very successful. We prepared every day in practice for the competition that we were going to face. And in life, in business, in school, you can do the same thing. When you have a test, don't just show up and wing it and do it and say, I've got it down. Prepare your life for success. And it starts here. My buddy John Maxwell again. So what do you think about that? Is that true? Find your niche, or find what you're good at. And you're going to find happiness. You're going to find success. And all of the other things aren't going to matter. So what do you see there? If you look in the mirror, sometimes we see ourselves. The best part about being a human being is the imagination. Don't let those boundaries cloud you to say that I can't do it. This clearly says the imagination, you can picture yourself doing anything, but find what you're good at. to go a little quicker. If you want to take notes on that or take a picture of it. Like I said, it's a process. Once you make that change, focus on that area and let other people know. Don't let them criticize you and be a thorn and being criticized by what they say that you can't do. They're telling you that you can't do it because they're afraid. They're afraid, so they're going to tell you that you can't do it. And again, remember, very few people change. Everybody wants to change, but they just don't know how. Mr. Ford was pretty bright, and his comment, whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. So what type of bad experiences are out there? Well, as I said, I've had a long, very blessed career. But if you're not prepared for the bad experiences, you're going to miss an opportunity to learn. What do you see here? I want to share with you, as an individual, I'm not afraid to say that I've failed. I've failed multiple times. And in fact, most of my learning and taking the next step has occurred as a result of failure. And my son would not be here, nor my daughter, if I hadn't recognized that and made a change. I've been in leadership most of my life, so I tell a lot of people the vision that I see, and I lead them. So there's a difference between management and leadership. Management is managing people for what occurred yesterday. Leadership is having a vision and mentoring others to get to that goal, that objective. So I spent a lot of time teaching and mentoring others, telling them this is what we have to do. In my family, we're tremendously competitive. I compete against my two kids, and I win all the time. I just want to let you know that. I compete against them all the time. We do a lot of mountain biking. I don't know if any of you are into mountain biking or any type of athletics, but we do a lot of mountain biking. I've gone in a lot of races. I've done a lot of triathlons. I'm highly competitive, and I challenge my kids. So I think you get the picture of how competitive we are. Well, here's the lessons learned. As a leader, I want you to recognize this is one of my greatest failures. We went on a mountain biking here in Harbison, and I decided that I had to beat my kids through the trail path. Well, I took off, and I didn't see them anywhere behind me. I had a smile from ear to ear because I was winning. So when I turned around to find out where they were, I was passing over a bridge. Well, when I took my eye off the bridge and then came back, the bridge wasn't there anymore. I had gone over the bridge and fallen 12 feet and hit a stump of a tree and separated my shoulder. So by the time my two kids caught up to me, remember they were way behind, I was laying in the grass in quite pain. Well, this is where ego is not your friend. I got up after my kids looked at me and said, "Dad, are you okay?" I said, "Sure, I'm fine. I'm fine." Got up, dusted myself off. Of course, I couldn't move my right arm. I said, "Okay, let's go. Let's keep riding." Now, in leadership, I tell all my staff, for safety purposes, if you're injured, stop. If something's not working in leadership, stop. If you're not passing a grade, stop. Stop and review, assess, change, and then redo it. Well, I completely failed in this area. That's my 5-minute notice. Excuse me. I have to give myself some time so I know where I'm at. So, what I failed to do was a simple failure of leadership. Do as I say, not as I do, and I failed at that. Here I was getting ready to go back onto the bike and continue riding. Well, make a long story short, my son and my daughter had more wisdom than me that day. They said, "No, Dad, we're not going." In fact, they took my bike and said, "We're going back. We're going home." And thank goodness I listened to them, because by the time I had gotten back to the car and gotten home, I was in tremendous pain. Never would have made it. So there's an adrenaline that happens when an action occurs. And sometimes we feel that we're strong enough to bear through it, whether it's athletics, whether it's work, whether it's school, whether it's even family matters. If there's issues in the family, we think that we can grin and bear it and get through it. Sometimes we have to listen to others to get us through those events. Some of the main comments that we'll tell ourselves. And who is our biggest enemy? Well, I forget who said it, but he said, "I have seen the enemy, and it is I." As a leader, the most difficult thing that I have to manage on a daily basis is myself. Because I'm emotional. I'm a human being just as you are. I talk myself out of things. Yet, when I go and I ask for advice from somebody else, they say, "Oh, I would do this. You could do this, this, and this." And they feel very confident when they tell you that. I'm sure you have told a friend or a constituent that, "Oh, I think you should do this. Don't do that." And it's very easy, and they shake their head. But yet, take that same advice for yourself. Because of your emotions, you're going to stop yourself. That's the invisible barrier to recovery from failure. So, I'm going to challenge you to come up with a personal growth plan. You don't have to show it to me. It's just to yourselves. But I really would suggest that if you want to succeed, if you want to change, if you want to go through a process where you're excited about something, you're happy, you found your groove, your personal growth plan, and that can be anything. I'm going to go out and I'm going to read 3 books this month. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do a public speaking event. I'm going to go to the Chamber of Commerce and I'm going to establish a network. I'm going to go to this class and I'm going to learn who the professor is and get some experience from his life. Those are certain things in the personal growth plan that you can write down and do yourself. I guarantee you that you're going to be satisfied. You're going to walk down that middle of the road and you're going to say, "I'm not going to go to the left because that's failure. I'm going to go to the right. And I know how to get to the right because that's success. And I've got a personal growth plan. I've got a recovery that I can recover from failure." It's not easy to go through failure. It really isn't. But I will tell you, if you stick to the process and you lay out that personal growth plan and you follow it, you're going to get to the end and it's going to be successful. Don't change your course, stay the course. I know these are you've heard the terms before, but it works. I just went through a change. Worked for one company at the nuclear plant. Unfortunately, that company has gone into bankruptcy. However, when they eliminated my position, I was devastated. It was the 3rd time that I have climbed the ladder only to lose a position for no fault of my own. Meaning, I had no control over it. So, when failure occurs, don't beat yourself up. Because we're our worst critics. We're the most difficult on ourselves. And we'll beat ourselves up, we'll emotionally tear ourselves down and say, I can't do it. There's that excuse, there's that fear. That personal growth plan that you've laid out will prepare you for when it does come. And I'm not trying to scare you, but it just happens. I was having a great time with the company I was working for. I was making a lot of money. I was doing very well. I was going all over the place. But my stress level had reached a point where I wasn't the same. And to my surprise, when that position was eliminated, the relief that I had, I said to my wife when I woke up that morning, so this is what real people feel like when they wake up every day. Because the stress level had gotten so difficult. I wasn't happy. I had moved only for a purpose that I didn't necessarily believe, and I was chasing money. Find your niche. Find what you enjoy. Find what you're good at. Because if you're chasing something you're not good at and that failure comes, it's going to devastate you. However, if you're chasing something that you enjoy and failure comes, you're going to recover and you're going to continue to move on. And my kids will tell you that I was a different person in that other position. Things happen for a reason. They were not within my control. I'm going to say once again, because we are our toughest critic, do not beat yourself up over situations that you can't control. So, lastly and finally, who are you? I really want to thank you for listening to me today. I did have a presentation. It's a short presentation. There's a lot more that's involved with associating with recovery for failure, as well as providing a personal growth plan. But I really hope that I provided some valuable insight. I hope this was beneficial. I hope you took some notes. I hope that you were able to gain some knowledge out of this. And I hope that it gave you some direction. I really do. So I want to thank you for your time today, and I appreciate it.